Emily Dickinson and religion. It is a discussion, maybe a debate that goes back as far as, well, when people first started picking up Emily Dickinson and reading her collected poems. And I think it is likely to go as long as people are continuing to read her poems, which I think should be forever. Um, Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear, of course, in two poetry playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, now over 750 videos strong, cruising towards 800 videos strong, and number two being the Emily Dickinson playlist, a playlist of videos dedicated exclusively to the greatest poet of all time, Emily Dickinson. Today's poem is short, very short. And it is one of the most biting criticisms of religion possibly in the Emily Dickinson canon, though I think even in this it is possible to read it differently than that. The poem, Faith is a Fine Invention, and it reads as such. Faith is a fine invention for gentlemen who see, but microscopes are prudent in an emergency. What are we saying here? What is the big hullabaloo with this poem? Why read this poem? What does it say about Emily Dickinson and her questions on religion? Faith is a fine invention. We have both the quotes, which in at least today's readings make you think, wow, someone doesn't really mean that, right? If I give you air quotes, you think I don't mean something. Is a fine invention, saying that people made up faith. That is as biting a criticism of religion as anything you're going to see in just 5 words. For gentlemen who see. Here's another thing. This word choice of gentleman. This is a slight nod toward upper class. It is in a sentence which suggests that these upper class people have the ability to see. But see is italicized, faith is in quotation marks. So is it that these words are being drawn together by our writer to say these things are equivalent, faith and seeing, but neither of them are really what they seem or what they are explained to you as being? So faith is a fine invention for gentlemen who see. If you already see what it is in which you are faithful, then it's not really faith, is it? You are seeing it. You are making it up the same way that you made up faith. But microscopes are prudent in an emergency. So if you already have your faith, that's fine and dandy. You see what you see, you have your worldview as it is, but the minute things break down, the minute things get hairy, we turn to science, not religion, don't we? We turn to microscopes and not pages in the Bible. We are looking not through faith, but through instruments of science in order to solve things. This is, I think, a very harsh criticism of religion, or at least organized religion as it is. Organized religion that says gentlemen are the purveyors of the word, right? And they can see, they have their faith, but all of that is just an invention. All of that is made up. It's interesting because Emily Dickinson is turning over the phrase see, right? Faith is a fine invention for gentlemen who see, seeing being the part of the religion that is sort of necessary, the mechanism through which the religion works in this case, seeing, right? But when she decides to make the poem about science, she doesn't say beakers, she doesn't say glass tubes, she doesn't say scales, she jumps towards the microscope. Because with a microscope, you literally see. In fact, you're seeing an entirely different world than the one that your eyes can see normally. But it's a world that's really there. So I wanted to have a little bit of contention here. So I asked ChatGPT, was Emily Dickinson an atheist? Because I think that this is the real discussion around Emily Dickinson and religion. Emily Dickinson was not an atheist in any modern categorical sense, but she also wasn't conventionally religious. If anything, she occupied a permanent spiritual gray zone, skeptical of orthodoxy, Christianity, yet obsessed with God, immortality, and the soul. Why she's often misread as an atheist, refusal to publicly convert. In her youth, during her during the religious revival sweeping Amherst in the 1840s and 50s, many of her friends and family publicly professed faith in Christ. Dickinson never did, which was seen at the time as a shocking act of spiritual resistance. Poems that question God's nature. I know that he exists somewhere in silence. Of course, I prayed, and did God care? These works sometimes border on theological rebellion. Science as a counterbalance. Poems like Faith is a Fine Invention suggest that belief alone is insufficient, that empirical observation has its place. Why she's not really an atheist. God is a constant presence in her poetry. She wrote about God more than almost any other poet of her era, sometimes in reverence, sometimes in argument, sometimes as a lover, sometimes as an absence. That obsessive engagement suggests belief in the concept, if not in doctrine. Metaphysical longing. Dickinson constantly wrestled with eternity, the afterlife, and the soul. Classic religious concerns she doubted, but she wanted answers, which is not the posture of a strict materialist. Mystical streak. Poems like Some Keep the Sabbath Going to Church reimagine spiritual experience outside the walls of orthodoxy. Her orchard becomes a cathedral, her bobolink a chorister. Best description of her position. Dickinson was neither a believer nor a denier. She was what we now call a religious skeptic, a spiritual individualist, a theological agnostic with mystical tendencies. She believed enough to argue with God, which in itself is a form of faith. Now, here's where I agree mostly with this, but I think that these things probably are true, but true poem to poem. What do I mean by that? Emily Dickinson's canon of poetry gives us her thoughts, her inner thoughts, through, I believe it's like 40 years of her life. And over that time, she was not intending to publish. So she did not have to have a steadfast position on anything. In that way, her poetry belongs to us almost as an insight to her personal journal. If you kept a journal, or if you do keep a journal, how often do you flip-flop amongst the pages? One day. So I guarantee you, especially if you have been through multiple relationships and you keep journals through them, you will go from page to page and have thoughts on your significant other that are contradictory. Probably at some point in the journal, you're in love with them. At some point in the journal, you don't know them. At some point in the journal, you hate them because they are now your ex. What we have, in effect, with Emily Dickinson is her journaling. We have her poems, which were personal to her, probably over the course of her life, her relationship with God, with religion, with divinity, with all sorts of things, changed from time to time. I think that that is what it is that we really have here. We have a picture of a full human being, someone who is at days feeling good, on days feeling bad, on days believing, on days not believing. That, in my opinion, is what we have in Emily Dickinson and her attitude towards religion. She never really had to have a nailed down position because that might be a bad pun for talking about Christianity. But she never had to have that steadfast position because she did not intend to publish. So there was no Emily Dickinson's take. It was just the feelings of a real person from day to day. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.